After decades of loss and solitude, I finally allowed myself to love again. I met Richard, a charming and attentive man, and for the first time in years I felt alive. But nothing prepared me for the day of my son Lucas's wedding, a day meant for joy, celebration, and family unity. Moments before the ceremony, I wandered into a quiet hallway to catch my breath and froze. There, in an impossible scene, I saw Richard entwined in a private embrace with my daughter-in-law, Madeline. Shock rooted me to the spot. My heart raced, my mind screamed betrayal, but before I could act, Lucas appeared beside me calm and collected. He leaned close and whispered, a wry smile on his lips, "Stay calm, Mom, I know everything. The revenge starts in 5 minutes." In that instant, I realized the day would turn from celebration to orchestrated retribution, with every move calculated for maximum impact. My name is Gloria Henderson. I am 63 years old, and today I'm preparing for my son Lucas's wedding, a day meant for joy, family, and memories. The house buzzed with activity, florists arranging roses, caterers setting tables, and photographers capturing every detail. Despite the excitement, I felt a knot of nervous anticipation. Weddings were always a whirlwind, and at my age, I noticed things differently. Small gestures, hushed tones, and fleeting expressions that hinted at more than met the eye. I adjusted my dress in the mirror, smoothing the fabric and taking a deep breath. It was meant to be a happy occasion, yet my intuition, honed over decades of life's twists, whispered that the day might hold unexpected surprises. Every sound, every movement felt charged with possibility as the morning unfolded. Lucas, my 35-year-old son, was the picture of calm confidence as he moved among guests, greeting family and friends with charm and subtle authority. Beside him, Madeline, my future daughter-in-law, radiated elegance and poise. She smiled effortlessly, yet I sensed a carefully controlled energy in her presence, a calculated charm that demanded attention. Observing them together, I noticed small nuances: the tilt of Madeline's head when speaking to others, Lucas's protective glances, and how the two interacted with subtle synchronization. There was a story behind every gesture, a silent conversation of trust, alliance, and ambition. As I watched, I felt both pride and wariness, understanding that the personalities joining our family were as complex as they were captivating. Tonight's celebration promised joy, but beneath the smiles, there were currents that could shift everything in an instant. The atmosphere in the house was a mix of excitement, laughter, and underlying tension. Family members moved gracefully through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries while subtle glances revealed unspoken rivalries. Guests mingled, sipping champagne, admiring the decor, and sharing anticipatory excitement, unaware of the undercurrents flowing beneath the surface. Every smile seemed slightly measured, every laugh carefully timed, and I noted these subtleties with practiced attention. Weddings, I knew, were as much about social dynamics as celebration, and today was no exception. The combination of familial pride, business acquaintances, and personal histories created a delicate, almost fragile energy. I felt the weight of observation pressing on me as I moved quietly through the room, noting expressions and interactions, knowing that in moments, everything could change and that some secrets might reveal themselves before the ceremony even began. Amidst the preparation and bustling guests, my thoughts drifted to Richard, the man who had re-entered my life after years of widowhood. At 63, I never imagined I would feel love's warmth again, but Richard had brought it in abundance. I recalled our quiet evenings, laughter, and the comfort of companionship, and felt a flicker of happiness in the otherwise hectic day. Yet, even in that joy, a small part of me remained vigilant, wary of vulnerability. Love at this stage of life requires courage and discernment. As I adjusted the pearl necklace around my neck, I reminded myself to cherish these moments while remaining perceptive. The balance between happiness and caution was delicate, especially on a day filled with emotion, social expectation, and unknowingly betrayal lurking just around the corner. While mingling with close relatives, I noticed whispers exchanged and fleeting glances that hinted at tension beneath the celebration. Small movements, an eyebrow raised, a hand subtly placed on a shoulder, a pause in conversation, spoke volumes about alliances and secrets. Guests were caught between cordiality and curiosity, and I observed them as carefully as a chessboard, noting each subtle gesture. Even the staff's hurried movements seemed to carry hidden urgency. I realized that these tiny signals would form the prelude to the day's true revelations. My experience had taught me to see beyond surface appearances, and today, those skills would prove invaluable. Every word, every glance, every silent pause became a piece of a puzzle that would soon reveal its dramatic picture, if I remained patient and attentive. Though the laughter and music filled the air, I felt an invisible tension beneath the surface, as if hidden currents of secrecy were running through the room. Certain interactions seemed rehearsed, polite smiles masking unease or ambition. My senses sharpened, noting who lingered, who avoided eye contact, and whose gestures betrayed subtle anxiety. It wasn't paranoia, it was recognition of patterns I had observed over decades. When appearances are perfect, secrets often lie just beneath. Every movement and whispered exchange carried potential meaning, hinting at conflicts and alliances that could erupt at the right or wrong moment. The joyous celebration was a stage, and I was quietly aware that some actors were already preparing for their hidden roles. Awareness and patience were my shields, and I felt their weight pressing me to watch and wait. As I moved toward the reception hall, a fleeting glimpse caught my attention. Richard standing too close to Madeline, their laughter slightly too synchronized, their hands brushing in a way that seemed deliberate. The subtlety was almost imperceptible, yet my instincts, honed over years of life experience, recognized that this was unusual. Nothing concrete had happened, but something in the energy between them fell off, an early warning that the day's events might take a shocking turn. I froze briefly, analyzing body language, eye contact, and posture, realizing that this moment would be pivotal. The celebration continued around us, oblivious, but my awareness had detected the first tremor of the storm to come. That small, almost invisible detail planted a seed of alertness that would guide every move in the moments ahead. As the ceremony buzzed with anticipation, I slipped away from the crowd, seeking a quiet hallway to collect my thoughts. The soft echo of my heels against the polished floor contrasted with the distant hum of music, laughter, and chatter from the reception hall. I paused to breathe, smoothing the folds of my dress and attempting to center myself amidst the excitement. Something compelled me to walk a little further, curiosity mingling with instinct. Years of experience had taught me to notice subtle energy shifts, and I sensed something unusual even before I turned the corner. The hallway felt charged, heavy with unspoken tension. With each step, I braced myself for the unexpected, unaware that the moment I stumbled upon would forever change my perception of love, loyalty, and trust on what was supposed to be a joyous day. Around the corner, the scene froze me in place. There, in a private embrace, was Richard, the man I had trusted with my heart, entwined with Madeline, my daughter-in-law, in a moment of undeniable intimacy. My mind struggled to process the image, and my breath caught sharply. The laughter, music, and warmth of the wedding faded into silence, replaced by a surreal tableau of betrayal. It was impossible to reconcile the image with everything I believed about Richard and the woman I had accepted into our family. My heart hammered, emotions tangled between shock, disbelief, and a surge of protective instinct. Every instinct screamed that I should act, confront, or flee, yet the sheer audacity of the scene rendered me momentarily immobile. Time slowed, amplifying the gravity of the moment and the realization that nothing would ever be the same. A surge of disbelief and paralysis overtook me as I processed the betrayal unfolding before my eyes. My body felt heavy, my mind racing to reconcile love with treachery. Questions fired relentlessly. How could Richard? Why would Madeline? The world seemed to tilt, colors muted as the raw weight of the scene pressed against my chest. I felt my hands clench unconsciously, heartbeat thundering in my ears. The hallway, once a place of quiet reflection, now felt like a stage where trust had been violated, and secrets screamed louder than any wedding music. I struggled to breathe, oscillating between confronting them immediately and controlling the urge to explode. Years of life experience urged caution, to observe before reacting, yet every fiber of my being burned with shock. The image would be etched in my mind, a seed of realization that demanded careful, strategic handling. Anger surged violently through me, intertwined with disbelief and betrayal, yet I forced myself to breathe deeply. I reminded myself of the stakes: Lucas's wedding, family presence, and the delicate balance of appearances. Reacting impulsively could shatter everything. Patience, strategy, and subtlety were my only allies. My mind raced, calculating possible outcomes, assessing risks, and imagining responses that could protect dignity while still ensuring accountability. A storm of emotion collided with reason, forcing me to maintain a calm exterior while plotting every silent observation and possible intervention. My pulse quickened, and my hands shook slightly, but I controlled them, grounding myself in composure. I understood that this moment required more than immediate reaction. It demanded strategic patience, keen observation, and careful orchestration to turn betrayal into an opportunity for control and revelation. Before I could decide on any course of action, Lucas appeared silently at my side, his expression calm and knowing. His presence was grounding, a shield against the emotional storm swirling inside me. Without a word, his gaze conveyed understanding, reassurance, and the promise of silent support. The knowledge that my son had already noticed and processed the situation instilled a strange sense of relief, allowing me to pause, breathe, and recalibrate. Lucas's composure contrasted sharply with the chaos of my emotions, providing a strategic anchor. In that quiet moment, I realized that we were aligned, silently communicating without alerting anyone else. His calm presence reminded me that patience and observation were more powerful than confrontation, and that the coming minutes would require precise timing, discretion, and trust in one another to navigate the explosive situation. Lucas leaned closer, his voice barely audible above the distant chatter, yet every word landed like a lifeline. "Stay calm, Mom, I know everything." The whisper sent a jolt of reassurance through me, grounding the storm of emotions that had threatened to overtake my reason. No panic, no rash actions, just trust in the plan my son was silently orchestrating. The simplicity and confidence of his message gave me clarity. We could observe, act subtly, and allow truth to surface in our timing. It was an unspoken pact, a shared understanding that this betrayal would be handled with patience, dignity, and strategy. My racing heart slowed slightly as I nodded imperceptibly, preparing to follow his lead, aware that the next few minutes would define not just the wedding, but the boundaries of loyalty, power, and family influence forever. With shock tempered by Lucas's guidance, I began quietly assessing the situation, mapping out options for subtle intervention and observation. The hall remained unaware of the tension simmering behind the smiles and polite conversations. I calculated timing, anticipating how Richard and Madeline might continue their deception, and how our subtle actions could reveal the truth at the precise moment. Every gesture, glance, and whispered word could be orchestrated for maximum impact without public confrontation. I felt a mix of adrenaline and empowerment, realizing that patience and strategy would make the exposure far more effective than immediate confrontation. The initial plan was simple yet precise. Observe silently, allow patterns to emerge, and prepare for a controlled reveal, trusting Luca's and my instincts to execute flawlessly when the time was right. I watched the nearby guests carefully, noting every subtle expression and glance. Some smiled politely, oblivious to the tension, while others exchanged whispers that hinted at curiosity or suspicion. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to remain composed, blending seamlessly into the wedding atmosphere. Every nod, raise of an eyebrow, or sideways glance told me something about how the room might respond to the events about to unfold. Years of life experience had taught me to read subtle social cues, and today those skills were invaluable. Each guest's reaction became a puzzle piece, revealing the underlying currents of loyalty, perception, and hidden agendas. I felt the weight of observation pressing on me, knowing that these quiet assessments were essential to orchestrate the exposure of betrayal without creating chaos or scandal. Richard, unaware of my presence and Lucas's knowledge, continued his casual demeanor, laughing and gesturing as though nothing had happened. The audacity of his behavior made my pulse quicken. His obliviousness was both infuriating and useful. It meant the moment for revelation had not yet passed. Every careless movement, every confident gesture, was recorded in my mind, a blueprint for the precise timing of our intervention. I felt a mixture of anger and fascination at his blind assurance, understanding that his overconfidence would soon become his undoing. Remaining calm was critical. My reactions could not give away that we had uncovered everything. I measured my breathing, adjusted my posture, and silently calculated how to maximize the impact of his exposure, ensuring it would be both undeniable and strategically satisfying when the right moment arrived. Lucas and I exchanged small, almost imperceptible gestures. A tilt of the head, a quick narrowing of the eyes, a barely noticeable hand movement. These subtle signals conveyed more than words ever could: coordination, awareness, and readiness. We silently mapped out the sequence of actions without alerting anyone around us. Every minute detail mattered: the timing of our reveal, the reactions of Richard and Madeline, and the audience's engagement. This silent communication strengthened our alliance, building confidence that we could manage the situation without immediate confrontation. The quiet understanding between us created an invisible bond, allowing us to navigate the charged atmosphere with precision. The tension in the room amplified every gesture, making our covert planning a silent choreography in the midst of a social event, poised to deliver maximum impact at the decisive moment. Madeline, unaware of our awareness, carried herself with practiced elegance and subtle arrogance. Her movements, gestures, and laughter exuded overconfidence, as though she could manipulate every perception in the room. I watched carefully, noting each way she attempted to charm and control those around her. This arrogance would later serve as a magnifying lens for her exposure. The more she flaunted control, the more her vulnerability became apparent. Every smirk, Every tilted glance, every carefully measured pause contributed to the growing tension. I felt a mixture of disbelief and strategy, knowing that her self-assuredness would unravel spectacularly under patient observation. Understanding the psychology behind her behavior allowed me to predict her next actions, ensuring that when the revelation came, it would strike with maximum clarity and effect, leaving no doubt in anyone's mind about the truth we had quietly discovered. As the ceremony moved forward, I calculated precise timing for the reveal. Every segment of the wedding, the vows, the speeches, the entrance of guests, offered potential windows for subtle exposure. I mentally charted each moment, anticipating how Richard and Madeline would react, and how the audience might perceive shifts in energy or tension. Every pause, smile, or glance was an opportunity to maximize impact. I kept a mental countdown, balancing patience with anticipation, knowing that even a slight miscalculation could dilute the effect. My attention to detail, coupled with Lucas's discreet coordination, ensured that we could orchestrate the moment to perfection. Each tick of the clock brought the inevitable revelation closer, and I felt a quiet thrill, knowing that strategy, observation, and timing were about to turn betrayal into a powerful lesson without a word of confrontation. The guests continued their interactions, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Casual conversations, laughter, and polite exchanges created a perfect backdrop for the unfolding drama. Every gesture and comment, though seemingly ordinary, became a part of the larger stage we were orchestrating. I noted who was more attentive, who whispered to whom, and who might later interpret events correctly. These ordinary interactions amplified the tension subtly, as the contrast between normalcy and hidden deception heightened the suspense. Watching the room respond naturally, I felt the power of patience and quiet observation. It was in these ordinary moments that the impact of the upcoming reveal would be most dramatic, striking guests with the full weight of truth without a single overt confrontation or chaotic scene. With every passing second, anticipation tightened like a coiled spring. I felt a mixture of adrenaline, satisfaction, and disciplined patience as the perfect moment approached. Each glance, whisper, and movement in the room became more significant, a subtle prelude to the exposure about to unfold. My composure remained intact, but inside, my mind raced through contingencies and possibilities. Lucas and I remained silently aligned, reading the room and predicting reactions. The tension, carefully nurtured through observation and timing, was palpable, creating an atmosphere charged with suspense. I understood that this build-up, quiet, patient, and calculated, would make the upcoming revelation far more impactful than any rushed confrontation could. The stage was set, and every detail aligned perfectly for the dramatic exposure we had been waiting for. Lucas moved with quiet precision, subtly guiding the attention of the room without drawing suspicion. A glance here, a small gesture there, and suddenly the audience shifted focus almost imperceptibly. He positioned himself near key individuals, ensuring that when the moment came, every reaction would be visible. The choreography was silent yet deliberate, a dance of influence and observation. I watched closely, heart pounding with anticipation, realizing the genius of his planning. Guests were oblivious to the manipulation, their attention drawn naturally by Lucas's careful orchestration. Each movement and adjustment built suspense like a crescendo in music, layering tension while maintaining the illusion of normalcy. I felt a mix of pride and excitement, knowing the exposure would strike with maximum impact because of the subtle control he exercised over the room's attention. The stage was perfectly set. I positioned myself strategically, choosing a vantage point that allowed me to see every subtle reaction, every small movement, and every flicker of emotion. From this spot, I could witness both Richard and Madeline, the audience, and Lucas's subtle interventions. My eyes scanned the room, noting gestures, whispered words, and shifts in posture, each adding to the mounting suspense. I felt a pulse of adrenaline as the tension built, knowing that patience would make the unfolding drama far more powerful than immediate confrontation. Remaining composed was critical. Any outward sign of recognition could tip them off. Every subtle cue became more meaningful in this carefully orchestrated scene. My observation, aligned with Lucas's guidance, would ensure that the eventual revelation hit with maximum cinematic impact, leaving no doubt about the truth we had quietly uncovered. Madeline's composure began to falter, almost imperceptibly at first. A quick blink, a slight hesitation in her laughter, a hand brushing nervously against her dress. I watched carefully as subtle signs of uncertainty grew, each movement betraying her previously confident facade. Her carefully controlled aura of charm and dominance was beginning to crumble under the silent scrutiny she didn't even notice. Every subtle misstep added weight to the tension, making her overconfidence work against her. I felt a surge of vindication, knowing that patience and observation had created the perfect conditions for exposure. The audience remained largely unaware, yet their attention was beginning to sense shifts in energy, creating an electric anticipation. The moment was delicate, precise, and thrilling, as Madeline's confusion became the silent herald of the dramatic reveal approaching rapidly. Guests, oblivious to the full truth, began to sense an unusual energy shift in the room. Conversations paused, laughter stuttered, and glances were exchanged with curiosity and subtle unease. Something unseen was influencing the atmosphere, an invisible tension threading through smiles and polite interactions. I observed their reactions with careful attention, noting who remained clueless and who was subconsciously picking up on the disturbance. The suspense hung in the air like electricity before a storm. It was fascinating to witness how subtle cues, gestures, and shifts in posture could communicate tension without words. The room, poised between celebration and revelation, became a perfect stage for what was about to unfold. Every silent moment amplified the impact, as guests unknowingly participated in the orchestration of exposure that Lucas and I had been carefully planning. Lucas and I exchanged nearly imperceptible signals, small nods, brief eye contact, subtle shifts in stance that guided each other and influenced nearby guests. These strategic whispers and gestures created a network of silent communication, shaping reactions and maintaining control without overtly alerting anyone. Every minor adjustment had purpose, reinforcing the narrative we were quietly orchestrating. Guests reacted naturally to these cues, their curiosity heightening, their attention shifting exactly as intended. It was a delicate balance, influence without detection, control without confrontation. I felt a thrilling sense of mastery as our coordination unfolded flawlessly, setting the stage for the eventual revelation. The room hummed with silent suspense, a cinematic tension that magnified every expression and gesture, ensuring that when the moment came, its impact would be undeniable and unforgettable. Every tiny gesture, glance, and movement became a tool for revealing the truth subtly. A hand placed on a chair, a fleeting smirk, a whispered comment, each communicated information without overtly stating it. Richard and Madeline remained unaware that their carefully curated image was collapsing silently before everyone's eyes. Guests began noticing inconsistencies, minor anomalies that planted seeds of doubt and curiosity. The tension grew organically, fueled by subtle actions and the audience's instinctive perception. I felt a sense of satisfaction and anticipation, knowing that exposure did not require shouting or confrontation. The carefully orchestrated sequence ensured maximum impact, as the truth emerged gradually yet unmistakably, leaving both perpetrators and observers fully aware of the betrayal, while maintaining the elegance and composure of the unfolding ceremony. By now, the room was a theater of unspoken suspense. Guests leaned slightly forward, exchanged furtive glances, and unconsciously monitored subtle cues that hinted at hidden drama. The energy was palpable, as tension and curiosity reached a cinematic peak. Every small gesture, glance, or whispered signal magnified the suspense, amplifying the impact of the truth silently unfurling. I watched, calm but exhilarated, as Richard and Madeline remained oblivious while the audience pieced together fragments of reality. The culmination of careful observation, strategic patience, and subtle orchestration had created an atmosphere where revelation was inevitable. The suspense was almost tangible, a perfect crescendo preparing the stage for the dramatic final act that would reshape perceptions and relationships without a single word of confrontation. The shocking truth is about to unfold. Hit like and subscribe to see how everything changes in the next moments. The moment arrived with precision. Lucas and I moved seamlessly, positioning ourselves where key guests could witness every nuance. I smiled politely, maintaining perfect composure while subtle gestures drew attention to Richard and Madeline. A fleeting glance here, a small adjustment there, each action orchestrated to reveal truth without confrontation. Guests, unaware of the strategy, began noticing incongruities. Richard's forced smiles, Madeline's unnatural poise, small gestures betraying their deception. The subtlety amplified the drama, making the revelation inevitable yet elegant. My heart raced with anticipation, knowing that patience and observation had created the perfect stage. Each guest's gaze shifted naturally, piecing together the betrayal before them, unaware that the entire scene had been carefully choreographed. This quiet, controlled exposure ensured maximum impact without a single raised voice. Richard's confident posture began to falter under the unspoken scrutiny. Every carefully constructed gesture now felt exaggerated, forced, and fragile. Madeline's once certain composure cracked, her laughter faltering, her hands trembling subtly as the audience's attention, guided by Lucas and me, silently pressed on her awareness. Neither realized how thoroughly their actions had been decoded. Each pause, misstep, and glance worked against them, magnifying their internal panic. I felt a quiet satisfaction as their overconfidence became their undoing. The tension between private knowledge and public perception grew unbearable for them, yet outwardly, nothing was openly confronted. Their silent unraveling was both thrilling and cathartic, a testament to the power of patience, strategy, and careful orchestration in revealing truth without chaos or humiliation. As the subtle revelations unfolded, I noticed the guests' focus shifting toward me. My calm composure, poised demeanor, and measured reactions contrasted sharply with Richard and Madeline's floundering confidence. Observers unconsciously began to attribute authority, dignity, and awareness to my presence. Conversations slowed, whispers emerged, and glances of recognition reflected growing respect. Without uttering a word, I influenced the room's perception, demonstrating that power could be wielded through patience, observation, and subtle action rather than aggression. It was an empowering realization. One could command attention and respect simply by being present and aware, letting truth unfold in carefully orchestrated steps. The audience was absorbing lessons in perception, control, and strategy, all without overt confrontation, proving that dignity and composure often outweigh force and drama. Family members exchanged discreet glances, subtle expressions betraying the internal recalibration of loyalty, trust, and influence. Unspoken judgments formed, alliances shifted silently, and everyone began reevaluating motives and priorities. Richard's overconfidence, once commanding attention, now repelled it. Madeline's charm faltered under scrutiny. Lucas and I observed quietly, noting the realignment of relationships without saying a word. Guests intuitively recognized the subtle shift in power, aware something had changed even if they didn't know the full story. It was a delicate but decisive recalibration. Respect and influence no longer relied solely on outward appearances or manipulation. Quietly, strategically, the family hierarchy was restructured, proving that patient observation, silent coordination, and calculated exposure could accomplish more than overt confrontation ever could. The evening became a masterclass in subtle influence. Every gesture, glance, and carefully timed action reinforced the new hierarchy of respect. Relationships began to shift organically as individuals recognized awareness, patience, and strategic composure as true authority. My presence and Lucas's orchestration created a ripple effect, demonstrating that influence could be established without shouting, accusations, or humiliation. Guests responded to subtle cues, aligning their respect with those who had demonstrated insight and careful judgment. Each observation, each silent intervention, altered the room's social dynamics, proving that subtlety and patience were more powerful than overt action. The transformation was gradual yet unmistakable, leaving a lasting impact on everyone present and cementing the idea that influence and authority are rooted in awareness and strategy, not in force or confrontation. By now, the truth had unfolded in a way that everyone could perceive without a single confrontation. Guests began connecting dots, whispering observations, and understanding that a betrayal had occurred. Yet there was no chaos, no shouting, no public humiliation. The revelation was clean, controlled, and undeniable, a testament to the careful orchestration by Lucas and me. The elegance of the method impressed everyone, turning shock into admiration for the subtle handling of a delicate situation. Richard and Madeline, aware of their exposure, were left to process the consequences privately. Observers were simultaneously satisfied and intrigued, having witnessed justice delivered in a sophisticated, calm, and strategic manner. It was a lesson in patience, influence, and dignity, showing that truth could be revealed with precision, without resorting to anger or public spectacle. As the evening wound down, I felt a profound sense of empowerment and calm. Every observation, every calculated gesture, and every patient moment had culminated in a flawless orchestration of truth. My dignity remained intact, my authority quietly recognized, and my presence had reshaped the room's perception of loyalty and influence. I realized that strategic patience and subtle action could achieve what confrontation never could: respect, clarity, and lasting impact. Guests left with a silent acknowledgement of what had transpired, and I walked away feeling composed, in control, and validated. The betrayal had been exposed, relationships recalibrated, and influence asserted, all without raising my voice. For the first time in years, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that integrity, observation, and timing were more powerful than drama, leaving a permanent mark on everyone present.